Hey guys, what is up? My name is Landon and welcome to the Jersey Zone. So yesterday there was a massive amount of trades, including a Patrick Kane trade that I missed all of it because it was the one day where I wasn't really checking my phone too much throughout the day. It was around 7 p.m. where I actually looked at it and I realized just how much I actually missed. So I tweeted out like, oh my god, I can't believe all of this is happening, and I just didn't see any of it. And the funny part is I still missed like 3 trades when I tweeted that out. Like I still didn't see the Matthias Ekholm trade, I didn't see the Puljujärvi trade, and there was another trade I think as well. Like I still missed a lot of stuff and I was already shocked at how much stuff I missed. So I won't be talking about every single trade because that would be way too long of a video, but I will be talking about most of them. I'll put timestamps in the description down below, so if you guys aren't interested in a trade, you can just skip to another one just using those timestamps there. But before we do get into it, if you guys are new to the channel and you like hockey content, please make sure to hit subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Alright, so obviously the trade that we need to talk about first, the big trade that happened yesterday, is the Patrick Kane deal going to the New York Rangers. Now, we knew that he was going to the Rangers for a little while here. I think it's even been like 3 or 4 days that it was basically confirmed. They were just waiting on having enough cap space to actually acquire Patrick Kane, and so it wasn't a surprise when he went to the Rangers. Now, the full details of the trade here is the New York Rangers get Patrick Kane and Cooper Zek. The Chicago Blackhawks get Puljujärvi, is maybe how you pronounce it. I probably didn't. I probably did not pronounce that correctly. And Andy Welenski, a 2023 second round pick that is conditional. The condition is if the Rangers make it to the 3rd round, that does become a first round pick, and then a 2025 4th round pick, and then the Arizona Coyotes, who retain 25% of Kane's salary, get a 2025 3rd round pick. Now, who do I think won this trade? I mean, it's pretty obvious. It is the Rangers. They get the best player in Patrick Kane. The return for the Chicago Blackhawks really isn't that much. Vili, I'm not going to pronounce his last name because I'm going to mispronounce it again, and Andy Welenski don't really seem to be too much. I believe Welenski is like 29 and Vili is 25, so they are on a little bit of the older side to be really prospects, at least Andy is. And so they didn't get a roster player back, and they might not even get a first round pick either, considering the Rangers would have to make it to the 3rd round, and that is pretty unlikely considering how much of a bloodbath that Eastern Conference is. I mean, they'll most likely have to face the Devils in the 1st round, who just got Timo Meier, and they seem to be pretty stacked. And then after that, who knows who they'll face, but, it's a very stacked Eastern Conference division here, so we'll see if they actually end up getting that 1st round pick. If they don't, that is kind of a little bit upsetting for Blackhawks fans, I would say. And so the Blackhawks didn't really get a ton back in exchange for Patrick Kane, but that being said, I understand why they didn't get that much, just because of the fact that Kane does have a no movement clause, and he was basically forcing the Blackhawks to send him to the Rangers and nowhere else. Like, Kane openly said that he was upset when the Rangers got Tarasenko and not him, so the Blackhawks were basically forced into trading him to the Rangers and not really anywhere else. So it is quite difficult to get a good enough haul back when that is kind of the circumstance, so I do understand it. But with the Rangers getting Kane, it makes the Rangers have one of, if not the best top 6 in the entire league. Like, it is kind of crazy how much talent they have up front there, and even though Kane hasn't had the greatest season, I don't really blame him too much. He probably isn't that motivated playing on a Blackhawks team that isn't that great. However, over the last 4 games here, he has 7 goals and 3 assists for 10 points, so he's been on fire lately, and that is the Kane that the Rangers hope come over to their team here. So we'll see how well it goes for the Rangers acquiring Kane, but it makes them pretty scary, and that is just up front. They still have guys on the defense like Adam Focht and Keandre Miller, Jacob Trouba, and then in net, they have Shesterkin, one of the best goaltenders in the league, who is having a little bit of a down season, but he still, I think, has like a 913. Like, he's still great. So the Rangers are stacked, and they're going to be just terrifying in the playoffs, that's for sure. The next trade that I want to talk about is the Matthias Ekholm deal. So the Edmonton Oilers get Ekholm and a 2024 6th round pick going to the Nashville Predators. They get Tyson Barrie, Reed Schaefer, a 2023 1st round pick, and a 2024 4th round pick. Now, I actually like this deal for both teams. With the Predators, you get Tyson Barrie there, which is a good offensive-minded defenseman. He can run your first power play unit there. He can score you some goals. Or if you really want to, you can also flip him for picks at this trade deadline, which is kind of crazy that it's not the trade deadline yet, even though we've had so many trades. But you have some options there with Barrie. With Reed Schaefer, he was the 32nd overall pick in last year's draft, so a young prospect. That's pretty great. It is basically a 1st round pick, and then you get this year's 1st round pick as well, and a 4th round pick. So that is pretty good for Matthias Ekholm. With the Edmonton Oilers, they get Matthias Ekholm, who's kind of the opposite of Tyson Barrie. He's that defensive-minded defenseman, which is something that the Oilers desperately need because they don't have issue scoring goals. The Oilers can score like 7 goals a game. It's not really an issue. The thing that they need help with is stopping those goals from going in their own net. That is the main issue that they're having, and getting Mattias Ekholm, I think, is a great thing. Plus, it's not like this is a rental for the Oilers either. Ekholm is signed for the next 3 seasons after this one here, so he's signed for quite a long time. I should say that the Nashville Predators also retain 4% on Ekholm's salary, so I think that kind of evens out to $6 million a year for Mattias Ekholm. I like that a lot. I think that's great. I think this is a good trade for both teams, and I'm glad that the Oilers are actually doing something at the trade deadline here, because just a few days ago there was a clip of Ken Holland, the Oilers GM, going around where he said that Evander Kane was going to be their trade deadline pickup because he's been injured and he's just kind of coming back here. So it kind of seemed, at least to me, like he wasn't going to do anything, but I'm glad that he picked up a piece because, you know, it's good to see when McDavid and Draisaitl are going far in the playoffs. You like to see that, if at least you're not a Western Conference team, at least. But yeah, I like to see them play a lot more often because they're super fun players to watch. So I'm glad that the Oilers actually did something. And another trade that I want to quickly talk about here involving the Oilers is Jesse Puljujärvi was traded to the Carolina Hurricanes in exchange for Patrick Puistila is maybe how you say it. Probably not, but that's the way I'm going to say it. The only reason that I want to talk about this trade is because I'm glad that Puljujärvi is finally able to move on from the Oilers. It feels like he's been wanting a trade for like ever. Like, I'm pretty sure it's literally been years since he asked for a trade. So the fact that he's going to the Hurricanes here, it's good to see. I'm not quite too sure how well he'll do with the Hurricanes. I mean, it's not like he had issues with line mates in Edmonton. Like, it's not like he didn't have great line mates there. It's just he wasn't able to score. So we'll see if, you know, he can actually find that scoring touch with the Hurricanes here. But I just wanted to say that I'm happy for him. Maybe he just needed a change of scenery and he'll do fantastic with the Hurricanes. We'll have to kind of see, but I'm happy for him. All right, with this next trade, it's actually breaking news for myself at least. It's not going to be by the time that I upload this, but we don't have the full details of the trade here. We just know that Jonathan Quick is no longer an LA King. He's going to be going to the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for Korpisalo and Gavrikov. Now, this is a super interesting trade for a lot of reasons. We knew that the Kings have needed goaltending for a little while here. You know, outside of their goaltending, they're doing pretty good, but Quick has an .876 save percentage. Cal Peterson fell off a cliff. They're basically relying on Phoenix Copley here, who is doing pretty well considering he's supposed to be that third stringer, but they're bringing in a guy in Joonas Korpisalo who has not really been fantastic over the past few seasons. He does have a .913 save percentage this year, so definitely a lot better than his previous years, but basically since that series against the Leafs, he hasn't been that great. He's had his ups and his downs, so it's kind of surprising that the Kings are bringing in a guy who's been really inconsistent when they need consistent goaltending. So it's a little bit of a shocker to me. They do bring in Gavrikov in this trade as well. I think that is pretty good. You know, a top 4 defensive defenseman. It's good to have. But the most interesting part about this trade is the conversation around it. Frank Saravelli tweeted out this, which is just like crazy to read. So to say that Jonathan Quick is unhappy with the trade, I'm told, is an understatement. The entire Kings team was a bit down after the game, a win, and you can understandably see it in Anze Kopitar's face after a 4-goal night. So this also caught the Kings roster off guard a lot, and they did not expect it. I'm really interested to see how this plays out for the Kings, because when something like this happens, when you trade away a locker room guy, a guy who is beloved like Jonathan Quick is, a legend for the LA Kings, and get some guys into the locker room here, is that going to affect how that relationship works and how that chemistry works with the Kings? It might, and it might not go well for the Kings here. You know, you're going to have some resentment from the guys in the locker room to these new players, even though it's not their fault. You know, it's not their fault they were traded, but you might still have some resentment there. That chemistry just might not work as well. So I'm very interested to see how this plays out. Maybe it's completely fine and they're just angry at management and that's just how it is, or this affects their play on the ice and they fall out of a playoff spot. That's entirely possible as well. Considering how close that Pacific is, they easily could fall out. So I'm very interested to see how this plays out for the Kings. It is a crazy trade that just blindsided a ton of people. But finally, we get to the Maple Leafs, who made 3 trades yesterday, and I'm talking about them last because, you know, they did make the most trades and they are my favorite team, so I'll probably talk about them the most. Let's start off with the Rasmus Sandin trade. So they trade away Rasmus Sandin to the Washington Capitals in exchange for Eric Gustafsson and a 2023 first-round pick that belongs to the Boston Bruins. This completely upset me. I will say this. I like Rasmus Sandin a lot. I think he is a great defenseman and a very good young player as well. I feel like he never really got a fair shake in Toronto. He never got a chance to get into the top 4 for the Toronto Maple Leafs, which they're pretty good on the left-hand side. The only way that he would get into the top 4 if he switched over to the right, and he's just not very good on the right-hand side. That's just not his position. So he never got a chance to really get into the top 4, and I feel like he definitely has the ability to. value. I don't think he's a bad enough defenseman where he should be in the bottom six. He should be in that last defensive pair, but the Leafs just didn't really have a spot for him, and it's sad to see him go. I think he is a good player. I think he will be a fantastic player. He's just young. He's still kind of learning there. I think the Capitals are really going to like him a lot. He can quarterback a power play for you, whether that's the first unit or the second unit, kind of depends. So I am quite sad to see him go. I really like Sandin, but I will say this. I'm glad that Kyle Dubas does right by his guys. With Rasmus Sandin, he really wanted to be in a lineup spot and he wanted to stay there. And with the addition of Jake McCabe, he wasn't going to be in the top six for the Leafs. It just wasn't going to happen. So he's going to be that seventh defenseman. Maybe he would get in every couple of games, but he wants a full-time roster spot. And it just wasn't really going to happen with the Maple Leafs. So he does right by him by trading him away to a team where he'll play full-time. And I like that a lot. Dubas has done that a couple of times. He did it for Travis Dermott there. He also did it for Barabanov. He's done it for a couple of guys, and I like that a lot. I just think it's a good decision, and I also don't mind the package that they get back for Sandin. They do get a first-round pick, although it belongs to Boston, so it's going to be a super high first-round pick, and they get Erik Gustafsson as well, who is more of an offensive-minded defenseman, so he could also run that second power play unit if you even decide to put him in the lineup. Like I said, the Leafs are pretty stacked on defense, not in terms of like fantastic guys, but they have a lot of guys on D. They have a lot of depth, so I think this is more of just a depth move for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Gustafsson might get into a couple of games, but I don't think he's going to play every single game for the Leafs. With the next trade that the Leafs made, they traded away Pierre Engvall to the New York Islanders in exchange for a 2024 third-round pick. With Pierre Engvall here, I'm not as upset about this one. I didn't mind Pierre Engvall, but he's a super frustrating player. I will say that because he is such a big guy. I think he's like 6'5", 220 pounds, but he rarely uses his body. He does sometimes, but super infrequently, and it's extremely frustrating because if he used his body more, he would be just a phenomenal player, I feel like. He's super big, he's fast, and he can also shoot the puck. So I feel like if he just really finds his game, becomes consistent, he'll be a really good player. Like, not obviously a fantastic player, but a good middle six player. I could definitely see that happening with the New York Islanders. I mean, they are a pretty physical bunch of guys there, so maybe they'll help Pierre Engvall kind of use his body a little bit more, get a little bit more physical, and if that's the case, I think the Islanders will really like him a lot. If he doesn't do that, he might be a frustrating player like he was on the Leafs. Now, this is purely a cap move. I don't think the Leafs really truly wanted to do this because they need help on the wing, and Pierre Engvall can play on that left-hand side, which is where they really do need help, but at the same time, the Leafs needed that cap space so they can reactivate Matt Murray off the IR. So, this is purely a cap move. I don't think they did bad in terms of the deal, though. A third-round pick for Pierre Engvall, that's fine. Like, I don't think he's worth a ton more than that, but yeah, it is purely a cap move, nothing really else. And the last move that the Leafs made yesterday is they acquired Luke Schenn from the Vancouver Canucks in exchange for a 2023 third-round pick. This is the move that I like most out of all of these trades that the Leafs made yesterday because they're not giving up anyone and they're getting Luke Schenn, and I like Luke Schenn. Luke Schenn was a Leaf draft pick back in the day, and I liked him when I was watching him growing up as a kid. So the fact that he's back is nice. I think that is a lot of fun. He is another big guy for the Leafs, another guy that can hit, and that is something that the Leafs kind of have gotten over the past few days is they've gotten a lot bigger and a lot tougher, which is something a lot of people have said that the Leafs need to do. I wasn't one of those people. I didn't think the Leafs needed to get tougher or bigger, but I've liked the moves that they've made throughout the past few days here, and like I said, they've gotten tougher, they've gotten bigger, so we'll see how that fares in the playoffs. If that's really something that helps them out and something that they needed, we'll kind of have to see, but I like this move for the Leafs. Once again, I don't think Schenn is going to be an everyday player for them. I think he is going to be that depth defenseman, that 7th, 8th defenseman. He'll probably get into a couple of games over the regular season, but I think by the time the playoffs roll around, I don't really see him being in the starting lineup unless the Leafs make another change, which it looks like they probably will, but at least from what some people are saying, the Leafs still aren't done, which is kind of crazy. They've made a ton of moves, so we'll see what they end up doing. We'll see if they make any more moves, and I'll cover those when it comes around, but that is going to be it for me. That's going to be it for this video here. Let me know what you think about these trades in the comments down below, and like I said, if some other big trades come through, I'll definitely talk about it, so if you're interested in that, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and if you guys like this video, make sure to leave a like. Also, make sure to follow me on my Instagram, my Twitter, and my TikTok. Links are all in the description down below. Like I said, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.